All right, I don't know about you guys, but I love grapes. They are one of my favorite fruits, and today we're going to find out, what do grapes have to do with social change and Cesar Chavez? Hey, you're listening to the English Learner Podcast. My name is Laura, and together we're going to dive deeper into the world around us, exploring interesting ideas and answering questions you've always wanted to know or maybe haven't even thought about yet. We will learn about literature, language, mind-blowing science, and inspiring people in history. Best of all, you'll be practicing your English listening skills every step of the way. And don't forget to visit EnglishLearnerCo.com/podcast to read along with the script, complete a graphic organizer while you listen, or to take a free listening quiz to test your knowledge at the end of today's show. Now it's time to sit down and listen up. This is the English Learner Podcast. On this episode of the English Learner Podcast, we are going to learn about an extraordinary leader in history, Cesar Chavez. Cesar Chavez was a Mexican-American labor leader and civil rights activist. He dedicated his life to improving the working conditions within the United States. He is most famous for leading a nonviolent movement for the fair treatment of farm workers. Chavez became one of the most well-known union leaders in the world. So let's start at the beginning. Cesar Chavez was born in Yuma, Arizona. His family owned a farm and a grocery store. When he was 11 years old, the Chavez family lost their farm as a result of the Great Depression, a time of economic poverty in America. They moved to California to find work in agriculture. After completing 8th grade, Chavez quit school and began working on farms full-time. He returned home 2 years later to continue farm work. He married Helen Fabella in 1948. Chavez and his family were migrant workers. Migrant workers move from place to place looking for work. Many migrant workers travel to farms as agricultural seasons change and more work becomes available in different locations. Chavez's family moved around California to pick fruits and vegetables on different farms across the state. Unfortunately, migrant workers had to work in terrible conditions in the fields, and many were paid wages as little as 40 cents per hour. Migrant workers were not allowed to own permanent homes. Families sometimes slept in their trucks. Some people lived in public housing complexes without running water, electricity, or bathrooms. Many were afraid to complain about their poor treatment and standard of living because if they did, they often lost their jobs. In 1952, Chavez received an invitation to join the Community Service Organization, or CSO, a well-known Latino civil rights organization. He became so passionate about helping the farm workers, he began working full-time as the director of the organization from the early 1950s to 1960s. Through reading about Gandhi and St. Francis during this period, he became increasingly interested in the idea of fighting for change through nonviolent action. In 1962, Chavez wanted to organize a farm workers' union. A union is when a group of workers come together to protect their working rights and pay. Members of the CSO disagreed with this approach, so Chavez chose to leave the organization. In the same year, he invested his own money to establish the National Farm Workers Association, or NFWA, in Delano, California. The goal of the NFWA was to unite farm workers in a peaceful, nonviolent struggle for their basic human rights. Their motto was Viva la Causa, long live the cause. In the beginning, they only had a few members. It soon gained in popularity, though, and people from all over the nation joined the organization. Together, the workers began to stand up for their rights for fair wages and better working conditions. Unfortunately, their requests were ignored by the grape producers, and the Delano grape strike began. As a result, Chavez and the NFWA launched a grape pickers strike in California in 1965. A strike is when people stop working as a way to peacefully protest against unfair working conditions. Chavez and 67 workers started a 340-mile march from Delano to Sacramento, California. On the way, the crowd grew larger as people joined them. When they arrived in Sacramento, the crowd had grown to 8,000 people. Strikers lost their jobs, were beaten, and even thrown into jail. But the workers didn't stop there. Next, they encouraged people to boycott California grapes. A grape boycott meant that many people agreed to stop buying and eating grapes. Grape growers lost millions of dollars as the boycott spread across America. In 1970, the migrant workers won their fight. The majority of grape producers made agreements with the union to finally increase worker wages and benefits. That same year, Chavez called for a nationwide boycott of lettuce. People who supported farm workers during the Delano grape strike now began to boycott lettuce. In 1973, conflict with grape growers arose again, and the union began another boycott on grapes. During these boycotts, Chavez was an exceptional leader who encouraged others to avoid using violence to fight for their cause. The United Farm Workers ended their boycotts of lettuce and grapes in 1978 after many of the workers' demands were finally granted. After many, many years, Chavez's efforts paid off. The earnings of migrant workers in California increased by 70% between 1964 and 1980. In addition, employees gained health benefits and a plan was created to resolve worker complaints. Chavez fought for workers' rights until the day of his death on April 22, 1993. Cesar Chavez was an extraordinary leader who was well respected by many. Over 35,000 people attended Chavez's funeral to mourn his death. In 1994, President Bill Clinton awarded Chavez with the Medal of Freedom. Chavez's widow, Helen, accepted this honorable award on his behalf. In 1999, Chavez was inducted into the Labor Department's Hall of Fame. Chavez dedicated his life to fight economic and racial discrimination in a peaceful but effective way. His legacy continues to impact and inspire people every day. Thanks for listening to the English Learner Podcast. But wait, we aren't quite done yet. Hop on over to EnglishLearnerCo.com/Cesar Chavez to test your knowledge on today's episode with a free online quiz. Don't forget to tune in to the next episode to keep learning more every day.